Thank you all for your continued patience. This meeting is now also recorded and being streamed live on the Library of Virginia's YouTube.
Okay, all right. Yeah, but that's in terms of the update, that's, I think that those things that in terms of what we've informed the commission and the public about for future opportunities that we have to engage again. And I keep saying the engaging of the community, because that's going to be vitally important. And so we're going to have to figure out every possible way, creative way to engage the community with social media, radio. I don't know about TV unless somebody's going to donate to us that kind of time, but it may be, public announcement channels that we could have. But I think that any creative way that I think commissioners may know of to help us, again, get the community involved, get the public involved. We need that. We need that support. Okay. So at this time, are you ready for the discussion?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And let me ask, are there any, before we go on, I'm sorry, are there any statements or anything from the commissioners that they want to say at this point, at this time? Okay. No? All right. Okay, then we'll move on. Very pretty, just in the way, yes. Right? Very dainty, just in the way. Okay. All right. So again, we're turning it over to Dominique.
Thank you so much, Delegate McQuinn. I would love to get started on the next agenda item in front of you, number 4, the discussion of assignments and subcommittees. As we approach through the legislation, as you've all seen, there are multiple subject areas that we are interested in exploring. And in order to do that effectively, efficiently, and comprehensively, we have had a discussion about potentially forming subgroups based on your own expertise and the expertise of the commissioners. These subcommittees, excuse me, I misspoke. I said subgroups. What I meant was subcommittees. These subcommittees would be formed, they could be around 2 to 3 commissioners, and they would be subject-based between education, healthcare, and let me look at my list. Education, healthcare, housing, voting, and education, healthcare, and economics. Please forgive me. And economics. What we would love to do is, but we can't vote.
No, we cannot.
Please forgive me. I was going to say what we would love to do is actually to leave this meeting between those here in the room and those online with an assignment of those committees, but I don't think we can do that without a quorum.
We cannot vote without the quorum, but however, we still could go through sort of doing these assignments.
Yes.
And then when we come back, that would give individuals time between now and the next meeting to at least begin to pull on their own intellectual properties and just knowledge and say, you know what, for the next meeting, these are some things that we could do, and then we can vote at that time, but it would give them some time to begin to research and whatnot. Yes.
Absolutely. So with that in mind, thank you, Delegate McQuinn. With that in mind, what I would love to do, would you like to start with those in the room and then I go to those online? Would that be the best way?
In terms of asking their interest in the committee?
Yes.
We could do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So first, I just want to review the committees again, as I've said them, just so that you can write them down. The committees would be education, healthcare, housing, voting, and economics.
Okay.
Education, healthcare, housing, voting, and economics.
And this would give, again, the commissioners an opportunity to decide in what area again, their expertise or their interests, that they could be effective in getting us to the objective of the commission. Do you have anything with you, Dominique, that can state once again sort of the objectives here? What
Of each subcommittee?
well, not the subcommittee, the overall objective of
Yes,
the commission.
of course.
Yeah, let's review that once again.
Of course.
And then we'll individuals could look at the various committees and determine which one that they will be able to.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Let me pull that up for you. And would you like me to read directly from the
Yeah.
legislation?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Absolutely. Okay. Oh. Here we go. And it reads, Commission to study slavery and subsequent de jure and de facto racial and economic discrimination against African Americans. This commission is designed to study the current impact and long-term inequities of slavery and subsequent state-sanctioned de jure and de facto racial and economic discrimination practiced against African Americans. And one, make recommendations to the General Assembly on appropriate remedies. And two, submit a report.
Okay. And it's just a refreshing of what I mean, because some of us have been here now, what, about a year? Has it been over a year? Okay. Yes. And so we're really at a point now that I think that with you in place as the project manager and the library support, that we are really, we're at a place that we can move full steam ahead in doing this work. And as you look at the various committees, you know, the committees, hopefully they know that they have the flexibility to also, you know, engage other people,
Yes.
you know, with expertise that, I mean, because they have such a probably a wide range of contacts to help support the work that they have done. And so they have a lot of insight into who's out there. Some of those individuals we'll be bringing actually to the table and asking them to come and be speakers. But we want to, not just the committee to benefit, we want, again, the public to benefit. And that's why it's so important that we have ways of identifying the ways in which we are going to be marketing what's going on, the meetings and whatnot, and reaching those folks who are out there in the public. Okay. All right. So, Dr. Allen, which area of interest for you?
Voting.
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 Okay. Okay.
Would you like me to go online?
Yes, please.
First, may I go to Dr. Newbie Alexander? You're first on my squares.
Okay, I would like education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Ayers, may I go to you, please?
Certainly. Economics would be fine, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Douglas, may I go to you, please?
Education, please.
Education.
Thank you.
I think that I would, if Dr. Allen doesn't mind, I would love to join her and vote.
Please.
Okay. So I have, again, let's go over Dr. Newbie Alexander, education,
Yes.
and
And Dr. Douglas
Douglas,
will also be
education.
in education. Yes, ma'am.
Voting, Dr. Allen. and
Yes,
Dolores McQuinn.
yes,
And economics, Dr. Ayers.
that is correct.
Okay.
I will follow up
Yes.
with all the other commissioners to ask about their interests.
Okay. That'd be great. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Any suggestions?
I have a question. This is
Yes.
Cassandra. So each of these 5 areas, are you looking, what exactly will we be doing on each of these different subcommittees? Are we looking at the literature? Are we looking at where resources are available? Are we looking at helping to define those areas? What will you be looking for us to do?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Nubia Alexander. This is Dominique. I'll chime in. What we would love for each subcommittee to do is a couple of things. One, work with me pretty closely and Delegate McQuinn on forming those research inquiry pathways. So what are the major questions in conjunction with what's in the legislation? So we would item line go through the legislation in addition to the project plan and kind of line up resources either in print, digital, public humanities projects, what you might be aware of that we may not be, and form those lines. So accumulating of resources and potentially connecting with those who might be able to speak either at meetings or with the subcommittee on their expertise. So it would be a lot of interfacing with myself and Delegate McQuinn on how we're shaping up what that area looks like and how that joins the larger umbrella of what the full report would look like in line with the legislation.
And I think in addition to that, we are, again, that's why I asked her to read the legislation. And it was sort of generic in terms of the objective, but under that, we had various places of focus. Yeah. What we would be doing in the work that would the work that would enhance the overall, I guess, the overall project. I mean, we've got, when it's all said and done, we have a document that we're going to have, a public document that would have been solidified by the work that we are doing. So it would be folks at the table, suggestions, people that we bring in, ideas, the intellectual understanding, knowledge of how we got here, how education just like education, how has education or the lack thereof affected African Americans as it relates to slavery, where we are now and where we'll be in the future. Those things, the discrimination that occurred as a result of African Americans being limited, having limited access to education. Okay, that's where we were. Now we are here in, hypothetically speaking, in 2022. How are we affected now? And in the future, how will people be affected? And then what are the remedies? Do we say African Americans, again, hypothetically speaking, I'm not giving anyone any ideas, even though there have been some ideas I've had at the universities who have used enslaved Africans to build them, to do the work. Should people have access to free education in the universities? What do we do with public education? Should more dollars, at-risk funds are there, but we know they're limited. So should those people who are living in certain communities and African Americans who have been, have not had all the access to the best and quality education, should we be doing something different for them? And so those are the kind of recommendations I assume would come from individuals who are working with that committee and bringing in or suggesting individuals who could help us to understand it. And it's not just our understanding, but we want the public to understand it. It is after the research, it's the work that has been done. And ultimately, when this document hits, people need to know it's in black and white, but it just didn't come from an idea that McQuinn had or Greg Kimball had or whoever. It's because the work was done to identify the factual information that created the scenario in which we are dealing with right now in 2022. That was I went around the mulberry bush, but however. Okay.
That was very helpful. I had just a follow-up question. I'm thinking about the hundreds and hundreds of projects that were funded by the Virginia Humanities on a variety of these topics that are reflected in these subcommittees. Is the commission going to reach out to the Virginia Humanities to bring them in a way and as a partner or as a collaborative organization because of their wide reach throughout the Commonwealth to provide a lot of this, these connections and, in some cases, these projects were funded and to create a website, and some of those websites are still in existence. And I'm also thinking about the Martin Luther King Commission.
Yes.
They also have done a similar type of thing.
I think you are, what you asked the question, but I think you already know the answer. Absolutely. And this is something that the flexibility that would also the commission would have. I mean, the committees would have. I mean, I have some insight into what Virginia Humanities, some of the work that they are doing, but you're right, they have done extensive work. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The work is already done. We just need to tap into who has done the work, what they have done, and how it's going to help us to, again, to bring about, to inform the public in what has been factual, what is factual about the work, okay? And in many ways, and I've been using this terminology for a while, it is identifying the truths that have been absent from the books and for that matter, from the public. So it is, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It is very much, so much of this work has been done. It needs to be collected in one sort of document that would be helpful for public dissemination. Okay. Yeah, anything, Joe? Okay. Does that help, Dr. Alexander?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Does that conclude, or are there any additional questions or further discussion on point 4, discussion and assignment of committees? To follow up, I'll follow up with all the commissioners who are not attending today.
All right, excellent. One of the things that you and I've had quite a few conversations. One of the things that I think would be helpful for the commissioner, if you would just give them some insight into what you have been doing.
Okay.
Some of the work that you have already begun in terms of helping to formulate this kind of the direction for the commission. Okay.
Absolutely. There are two kind of main things that come to mind that I'd like to share. The first being and I can share this via email so that it's easier to digest, is a pretty extensive outline of what could format to be a report. It is not by any means the final outline, but it is taking the piece of legislation as well as the project plan and structuring it out in a way that makes sense, that includes a variety of primary source and secondary source materials found throughout predominantly the Library of Virginia, but also incorporating several books and sources. So what I can do is share out this outline, and it really takes you through from introduction to conclusion, and you can see where each sub point within the legislation is broken out and the different types of pieces of points that need to be made in order to structurally solidify that portion of the legislation as we move on. So I will be sure to share that. It also includes links and citations to books and digital resources throughout the library, so that you can see where all citations are coming from, where all resources or data or statistics that I'm pulling are coming from. So that's one piece that I'll be sure to share. The second piece that I will also be sure to share is a sample modeling that I did based on the topic of housing. So out of the 5 committees, just as a pick of the cards, started with housing. I myself not necessarily professing to be a scholar or an expert in housing. However, I did have access to a plethora of resources through the Library of Virginia. In this modeling, you will see a timeline. It's a visual representation of a timeline, and you'll see, I believe it starts in enslavement and moves into current day. What this modeling will show are, thank you, Dr. Allen. What this modeling will show are pieces of legislation that were passed through General Assembly from the time of enslavement to now that pertain to housing, and specifically that pertain to housing that affected African Americans throughout the Commonwealth. What you'll see is not necessarily an analysis or a recommendation that comes out of this modeling, but rather it's just simply a listing of all pieces of legislation that I could find that were passed that impacted African Americans as pertains to housing. A similar model could be made as pertains to all of the committees, education, voting, but this one just particularly looks at housing, and it lists, I would say, about 40 to 45 pieces of legislation that move the needle in any variety of ways. Again, this is not an analysis piece, and it's not a piece to derive recommendations for this commission. It is simply just an example of what could be done using the resources out of the library and out of the General Assembly. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And just for follow-up, are there any questions or response to what Dominica shared just now?
My only follow-up question is when will we be able to see this particular document?
By end of day tomorrow.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, I think if there are no other questions or information, then we're going to go on to number 5. But before we do, there's still been, early on, we asked that the commissioners would make recommendations for keynote speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trying to collect I guess, samplings of books, recommended books for commissioners to read or for the public. And I guess that some books are a little heavier than the others.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know we have all of these intellectual and professional individuals in academia. So, I mean, I don't want to have to read C-Spot Run, but there are some others that are really deep, you guys. So if there are some suggestions that you think that, and I guess we just put it out there, you know, just put it out there, and people who are interested, maybe we do a little summary,
Mhm.
you know, with the book, with what you suggest that people could read.
Well,
That summary, so people will have an insight, the public will have an insight as well as all of the rest of us at you know, what level of I guess, comprehension people could have possibly if they sort of dive into this book. I mean, I don't want anyone going out spending, you know, $40 on a book and then, well, they are very high, $40 on a book, and then they find themselves, it's really not within their capacity to kind of dissect and comprehend and analyze that particular book. Okay.
we can absolutely work on that. And another thing that I can do as I follow up with the subcommittees and with each individual commissioner specifically, is I can be asking for recommendations, and then I can
Good.
return with, if there was a theme that emerged or a similar book that emerged, I can
Excellent.
return with that recommendation.
Excellent. And I would hope, I think it would be appropriate for the next meeting, and Dominique and I can get together probably next week or week after next. I'm going to try to schedule it so that there is, you know, we have a meeting, it sort of be a monthly meeting, but the date, you know, up to 6 months, all those things would be, you know, addressed and try to, you know, put the date in place and all of that. I think, and that would give people, you know, opportunity to work on that calendar, to know that they got this going. And we're sort of on a fast track with this, okay? And catch up, or catch up and then fast track, okay? So if you all could be helpful in doing that, we would certainly appreciate that, okay? Yes.
And excuse me, Delegate, Dr. Allen, did you have a question?
Not really a question, but I'm wondering if we could include with the book list, a list of documentaries. That people
Yes,
could watch.
absolutely. Good suggestion. Great. Yes, absolutely. And I still get mad at some of the documentaries for, you know, after I look at it for 3 weeks afterwards.
Some of them raise your blood
So
pressure.
I'm kind of, you know, yeah, and some books, believe me. Okay, I think that's awesome, yeah. Is there any other suggestions in terms of things that we might want to look at, or anyone? And you too, Sandy and Greg, suggestions from you as well.
Online exhibits.
Mhm,
um,
awesome. And going to some place. I did speak to Dominique about several places of interest that we might could go. I like to Alabama, to the museum there, to South Carolina. I was at last week, they had the grand opening for the Freedom House in Alexandria. Very interesting. And then they had a whole celebration on Monday for that. So there are some sites and places that we may want to put on a list as well for recommendation to somehow, you know, if you don't physically go, which I think a lot of times, some of those things we need to do collectively, if we could, as a body.
Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay, thank you. So we're moving right along. At this time, we're going to open discussion up for public comment. If anyone in the public, anyone has any comments, questions, suggestions? Okay. All right. Okay. I don't have anything
Delegate
else.
McQuinn.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I apologize for interrupting you. If I may, I'll say very quickly that we did discuss speaking with commissioners about how we want to get the public engaged and get out
Right.
into their
Okay, we
host
did.
spaces.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just as a reminder, that these meetings are of course open, and the public is invited and they're streamed on the YouTube channel. However, we want your recommendations on how to best get the public engaged. We had discussions, the delegate and I had discussions about getting out across the Commonwealth as much as possible to hear from people. And we want to go outside. We want to visit you. We want to visit into different places. We had discussed either meeting at commissioners, institutions, affiliated institutions. We've discussed HBCUs, public, like we've discussed a lot of things. So please, as I reach out to you following this meeting, just have any ideas that you may have about where and how we could engage the public moving forward. If there are any creative ideas that you may have about how you might like to participate in a public comment or public commentary possibilities, please let me know. Thank you.
And thank you for sort of coming back, around and talking about that. But we also want to, there are, as these meetings could also be town hall meetings. They could be symposiums. They
Yes.
could be, a number of things that we could have that would be engaging, and we can call it. So it's, we have, it's not like we're limited in terms of how creative we get with this and what we do to make sure that the public is engaged in it. Okay. So that's all I have, but I would like to, I don't know whether Sandy or Craig, this Virginia Untold, is it one of you, somebody could speak on that and share that with the public?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that. I'm going to shoot something to it.
Do you mind?
Okay.
You want me to sit over
Yeah,
here?
I'm going,
People can see me.
musical chair
Musical
again. We go
chairs.
on.
It's fine. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So
Thank you.
I'm Greg Kimball with the Library of Virginia. So I'm trying to remember how long it's been up, but it's been quite a number of years. But 2013. We have been building an online repository, and you can go and plug in Virginia Untold in your computer and as from home and pull it up. But it has literally hundreds of thousands of documents related to particularly African-American life in pre-Civil War Virginia. And these are compiled from a lot of different collections at the library. It's a really fabulous resource if you're doing family history or the history of African Americans, which of course it's very relevant to the subject of this commission. So, it's just a great resource. We hope, the public is wide open to the public. One of the things I always like to stress is that, one of the great thing about history today is it's really been democratized. And instead of just certain people who go to archives getting to see the original material, the actual letters and documents that people wrote that tell the lives of Virginians, you get to do that yourself. So that's really it in a nutshell. Anything else you think I should mention about? No? Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Kim.
Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Kimball. I am going to ask that Dr. Burton will come as well from Virginia Union. And she's been, again, working on behalf of the UU to help us get settled here. And so if she would have a few words, that would be wonderful.
You don't have to move.
Okay, all right.
And where would you like to?
Please, if you want to sit.
Sure, thank you so much. So I would like to, I am Dr. Marquita Carmichael. We've known each other for a very long time. And so the delegate has permission to call me whatever she likes. But to all of the commissioners that are here virtually, welcome again to Virginia Union University. On behalf of our president, Dr. Hakeem J. Lucas, all of our trustees, our alumni, and our friends, we welcome you back to this place. And we hope that you're welcome. We hope that you found everything to your liking. And if there's anything that we missed, please tell us so that we can do better next time. Also, on behalf of the Center for African American History and Culture that's found here at Virginia Union, and our director, Dr. Cleve Tinsley, and all of his staff, we are excited about the opportunities to partner with Madam Delegate and with this commission. Our university is straight out of Lumpkin's jail. Our story, our founding is for when Mrs. Mary Lumpkin met Dr. Nathaniel Culver and started a school in Lumpkin's jail, and that school that they started grew into Virginia Union University. So we are wedded, if you will, and deeply invested. And so we thank you for the opportunities that we have to serve you in terms of research, in terms of spaces, and other ways that you see that we might be able to assist in the work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. She's being really nice today to me. Nice to me today. Okay, well, I think that if there's nothing else that the only other thing I do want to suggest that if anyone may be aware of anything going on that we could learn from, that we could be a part of, I think that if you would suggest, what's happening, whether it's across the country, in close proximity to where we are, in terms of Virginia, if you could send that information to Dominique, and then she could distribute it to all the rest of us where, again, we are learning as we go in terms of moving in this direction. And I think other places are looking at us in terms of what, with this commission. So we've got some large shoes to walk in and a big pathway, because people are talking about this commission, even though I don't know we're not where I would hope we would be, but we are moving ahead. Okay.
Delegate McQuinn, this is Cassandra Newby Alexander again. I had a quick question in its regards. It is with regards to the different subcommittees. One of the things that I have noticed is that a lot of historic spaces, institutions, buildings, so forth, that are part of the African American landscape in Virginia have either been ignored, forgotten, underfunded, in private hands, neglected, whatever, and many are in danger of being obliterated. And while some are, some are in the view of people and something is happening, a lot of them are not. And I'm thinking in particular in Hampton, for example, the site where Mary Kelsey Peak is buried. That's still in private hands. There's been no action by the city officials in Hampton to absorb that cemetery into the larger landscape. So, and none of the categories really kind of appropriately addresses that area where these are still the legacies of discrimination, slavery, Jim Crow, that kind of thing. And, and these sites are very, very important. And some of the buildings that are on those sites are very important and could be gone in the next 5 years if at least attention is not brought to them. So I was wondering if there's space to add that particular important dimension to our study.
I think absolutely. I think we have an opportunity here to address, again, looking at the conclusion of the matter, at the, with a category, and I think it maybe need to think about what category that would be, okay, and how it fits in with the legislation, okay? But I think absolutely we have that opportunity. I think we have an obligation to do it, to make sure any of these endangered places, places that, you know, maybe privately owned, to at least have conversations with people. But you also have, we are at like the African American Resource Task Force, where Justin Reed is chair with the Virginia Humanities. That is something that they are doing, and they have been doing that. There are other committees or people that may be interested that are helping to, that are looking at these various, those kind of things from various aspects in an effort to save it, to say it's endangered. And so I think we need to sit down and determine how we would approach it. How would we put it in a category, or what category would it be in? And then address it. And let that be a part of the final document that we put out to the public. You know, it could be just called endangered. I don't know. I'm just, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, but I think absolutely. And thanks for suggesting it.
I think that that is all that we have.
Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, or no one else that has any suggestion, want to, whatever, then thank you all for coming and being a part of this. We really need to find a way again, because there was supposed to be, what, 4 or 5 of us in-house, and Cassandra said she could not make it, so she did share that, but we have not heard from anyone else, right? Okay, this is, I want all of us to understand the importance of this commission and the importance of what we could do. California started this after we did, okay? Afterwards. And I'm sure that they looked at what we were doing in Virginia, the legislation, heard about it, and they said, hey, we need to make this happen in Virginia. And they are moving on, okay? There are other places that I know are talking about this, how they could create this kind of commission, and especially commission like this, but especially in light of what is going on across this country. No teaching of CRT, and as I told a group on Monday, when they said, you know, we don't want CRT taught in our schools and, you know, to our children. But what I hear is that we don't want Black history taught, okay? That's what I'm hearing. And so, you know, I hope that we can really, and I'll be making phone calls to every commissioner to make sure that we are ready to take on this kind of responsibility. And we want, Virginia we should be leading, as I say all the time. We're the former capital of the Confederacy. And so what we did, nobody probably could do it better than Virginia. And that needs to be the same thing that as it relates to this commission. Nobody should be able to do it better than Virginia in meeting this obligation and the objective of this commission, okay? All right, well, with that said, thank you all. Oh, I'm sorry, go on.
I'm sorry, Delegate. I was just wanting to say that I'm right now on a bus on the way to the Whitney plantation.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, and we yesterday left Africa Town, and I don't know if I think that's a really important place. If people have not gone to it, that we might take a visit to, because there's a lot of examples of the kind of economic development that they're hoping to accomplish, even though they're still being held down by this Mayer family. So it was a really important experience, I think. And as it just wanted to mention that
Okay,
as a possible place to visit by the commission.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for the suggestion. And please let us, if you get a moment, to write a little something up and shoot it to us so we could hear about your wonderful experience you've had and what is the importance of us possibly looking at it and visiting. We appreciate it.
We'll do.
Okay.
We'll do that, certainly.
Thank you. Okay, well, with that being said, thank you again. You all be safe, and you'll be hearing from us real soon. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.